It's a good Pigman song I got going. It comes after Cocaine Jesus on my playlist.
Nice.
What another good pick me up. Another good pick me up.
Yeah.
All right, welcome back everybody to another Founder Sessions. It's post Thanksgiving break, one filled with gluttony. This is John, Lynn, who's going to be joining us. Before we jump in, John, into specifics about you, let's chat a little Thanksgiving.
Sure.
Right? What was the most absurd thing you ate or did as part of eating, or tradition-wise that you do as part of eating for Thanksgiving?
Interesting. Maybe, so with the Lynn clan, you never really know what you're signing up for in terms of the Thanksgiving experience.
Okay.
And so the most surprising thing was that it was a completely tame, enjoyable experience. The first time in our 31 years together, so it's my best.
So one of our constants is my mom makes cranberry pie, and both with and without nuts for the variations of the family. Who my sister really is the one without nuts because nuts is better, right? And you can eat it as an appetizer. Pie as an appetizer.
What?
Yeah, and apparently 80% of the people voted on my Instagram following on my story agreed that it's an acceptable form of gluttony during Thanksgiving.
So like particular kinds of pie or?
Cranberry pie.
Cranberry pie only.
Which is amazing because you get the sweetness of the pie and a little bit of sugar in there, and then you get the kind of sour of the cranberries. It's that true umami that the Japanese have been hunting for centuries.
There you go.
All an American tradition.
Awesome.
So we're here to talk a little bit deeper about a subject we talked about before, which is this idea of accelerators, right? An area you've been deep on. So why don't you go ahead and kind of give people some more background around your history, what you've done in the New York tech scene, and then I think that could generate some really exciting conversation for us.
Sure, yeah. Happy to start there. So hi everyone, happy to join you all today. My name is John Lynn. I'm the co-founder of the Studio Project, which is an accelerator that has a pretty unique perspective on the possibilities of the model, and have been doing a lot of work in bringing together the accelerator community in New York City through the New York City Innovation Collective. And accelerators have been a really important part of my ability to not just enter the tech community, but to become valuable in it. And I've spent a lot of time helping design, launch, build, manage accelerators because of what I've seen them do for my story, what I've seen them do for others, and the way that they've enabled so much access and progress for so many different kinds of people and organizations during my time in the tech scene here.
Yeah, and so the accelerators you've worked with before include Techstars.
Yep.
Right, probably one of the two most well-known brands in the accelerator space.
Yep.
Also includes which I guess is the traditional companies come in, go through a cohort, exit, raise capital, continue on their journey.
Yeah. Right.
So that's one model, but you have other models too you've been exposed to.
That's right. So, John, you're exactly right. The historical model of an accelerator is typically a 3-month program that brings together a small cohort of early-stage entrepreneurs. They may or may not be first-time entrepreneurs, but they're all early on the journey. And over the course of the 3 months, they're exposed to a curriculum of content by the accelerator that helps them understand their go-to-market, their business model, what their fundraising strategy should be, value proposition and articulation, but also exposes them not just to a curriculum, but to a community. And it brings in not just subject matter experts that have studied specific topics deeply, but individuals that are out in the field operating on this stuff day to day. So that can mean other founders, it can mean real investors, technology experts, service providers, sponsors, business partners, everything, every stakeholder that an early stage company might need to really prove and validate their quality and potential, but also make progress towards fundraising. So that at the end of the 3 months, they are able to go out and really aggressively make a case to the investment community that they're ready to go and they're building something big. Now, to your question, that model has been adopted worldwide in ecosystems all over the globe over the past 5 or 6 years, and then they've become really important frameworks for bringing together tech ecosystems in cities all over the world. But they've also been applied to different settings as well. So we've seen accelerator models also become educational models for individuals that want to get a job at a startup, right? And learn the sales skills or the marketing skills or design skills, development skills they need to do that at the same time that they get the network to do it. So Startup Institute, one of the programs I helped build in New York City and that I actually went through, created by Techstars, the Techstars Boston team, a few years ago is a great example of that. But also, the Studio Project, which is my current jam, it focuses on building accelerator frameworks in institutions. So if accelerators are able to build innovation resiliently in the tech community, why can't they do it inside of corporations, universities, government activity? And so that's another example of the way that the model's discovering new applications.
And let's talk terrible, like worst time to be drinking water as you finish your sentence after you had I had a good few minutes in there to drink water.
Yeah.
So given that there's these different people, these different institutions that could have it, how do you see them benefiting? So you can use corporate institutions as an example, right?
Yeah.
Corporations. What to them? What do you think the benefit is, and then how do you work with them specifically? What does success look like?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And the answer originally was, well, they get a framework that can help them attract higher potential talent. They get by giving them ownership and an opportunity to build something innovative. They can develop internal talent. They can have much cheaper R&D function. They can get new products out to market in a less frictive way. But from our perspective, what they really get out of it is a new organizational approach. So if you look at some of the big tech companies today, right, Google in particular, you see them creating frameworks for ownership for their employees. But the employee can have an idea, come in, get access to resources, personnel, and build something new. This is the reason that Google is no longer Google, it's Alphabet, right? It's become a framework that can enable the construction of almost any idea if it's good. To us, that essentially means it's an accelerator. So the key way that we believe an accelerator system can help a corporate is by equipping it to succeed in the new economy in the way that Google and other big techs are.
And so is the goal for you guys, you go in and you create this framework, you work with them, you build up maybe their first cohort, but eventually they own it and you guys are able to step away? Or
That's exactly it.
Okay.
So we have a sort of install, playbook, blueprint process, right?
Got it.
So we'll spec what the system should look like, help build it out. Then once we've run it, provide a playbook so that the company can use it on its own. Yeah. And then in the blueprint function, expand it so that it can grow as it becomes more successful. And
is part of this just that the going back to in the early startup days, you have the innovator's dilemma, right? A book a number of people read. One of the issues you run into is the support and creation of new products and having to remove them from the traditional business to find success, because if they live under the traditional P&L, right, the economics may be different, the margins may be different, the cost mechanisms may be leaner or need something leaner that doesn't fit under the old system, and thus it would get crushed. Living in that world, this is allowing it to live on its own, go through its own support network with the company. Do you guys put requirements in place for what that looks like? Is it like you need to fund some of these ideas for a period of time so they can show proof of concept, not smother them or get bored with them, or the things that happen a lot of times with internal innovation at large companies? Yeah.
No, so if your question is how do you ensure that an accelerator doesn't fail to the innovator's dilemma? Yeah. A big part of it is the air cover that it provides, right? So the framework itself is an organization for how the accelerator system will input resources from the institution, personnel from the institution, external resources and individuals or organizations. But also, it's sort of a locked door, because you have to have a place in participating in the accelerator, whether it's helping on the programming side, mentoring, or being a participant that's building something in it in order to participate. So there's automatically protection for the innovation.
So when I think about the universities you brought up earlier, I think we both went to Washington University in St. Louis. Quick plug, top university, smart guys here, real smart guys. I think we both love WashU. In the business school, they have the Scandalars Entrepreneurship Center. Is that in itself a very unique thing? Is that part of the opportunity for you guys to go create it? Or do you find this accelerator program you guys are doing different from what universities have already traditionally done to support entrepreneurship on campus?
Yeah, great question. So we definitely don't see accelerators as something that will displace current mechanisms of work, education, or productivity in general. But we do see it as something that can live alongside and inside of existing institutions and keep them updated and effective in the new economy. So with something like the Scandalaria Center or any sort of business school or university department, we're confident that those programs can have an accelerator program that does offer pretty unique benefits and opportunities to college students alongside the standard benefits of being a student at a university.
Somehow my computer run there threw me off a little bit. It's supposed to be muted. Let's do that for sure. There we go. So those seem like more traditional placements for this program, but then you mentioned some really interesting areas like a union that I found incredibly compelling. Let's talk more about that and what would that look like, and is it the same, different? How does a structure like that work?
Yeah. So John and I were talking a little bit before the conversation here, and I mentioned one of the potential applications of an accelerator that we're excited about is potentially see them grow in seriously non-traditional circumstances for an accelerator. So for up and coming politicians, creatives, but also for labor groups to transition from one industry to another, right? So we're seeing more and more unions having to deal with the challenges of automation and offshoring, but are excited to experiment with what it might look like to put those groups through an accelerator that can expose them to new skills and new work as those offshorings and automations occur, to keep people aware of their opportunity to provide value in the economy, take care of themselves, and participate in what's going on and being developed in the world. So that's one of the ways that we could see an accelerator not just applying to a new circumstance, but also scaling. Because remember, historically an accelerator is for 10, 15 elite individuals or teams that have been sourced through a pipeline of 1,500 applications. But if we want to imagine what it might look like for 1,000 individuals to go through one of these programs and come out on the other side with the next step, then that's exciting and should be explored as well.
And then, from the person who's looking to get involved, right?
Yeah.
Call it the entrepreneur, right? What advice do you have for them, or how should they think about these new and exciting opportunities outside of the Y Combinator's, Techstars, ERAs of the world, your very traditional accelerators, your Numas, who we had on recently. So, what would that, what could you tell them? How should they think about this?
Sure. Yeah. So, Numa, Techstars, Y Combinator, some of the oldest and most global accelerator brands in the world. But like I said before, there's more than 10. We estimate that there's more than 10,000 of these programs worldwide now. So, as an entrepreneur, you should think about an accelerator not as a really cool opportunity that only that nobody gets into, and when you get into it, you get made in the way that you do if you raise venture funding, right? But should look at it as an opportunity to get curated access to the relationships and the resources you need to move your business forward in a really focused way, really fast, and discover your best opportunities with the project that you're pursuing.
And then you're also involved with the Innovation Collective, and so that, I guess, it's an aggregation of accelerators. What are some of the concerns you guys have, or what are the goals for accelerators as they start to work together in this on this platform?
Yeah. So it's a very interesting problem, right? Because you and I have a pretty shared understanding of what an accelerator is, but we still had to describe it.
Yes.
And it's not just because accelerators are new. It's because the word accelerator means something different depending on who you're saying it to and who's saying it. So one of the big issues that needs to be solved is that a standard model for accelerators should really begin to exist, right? So that people understand what kind of qualifications and abilities it takes to run one well, what kinds of resources and individuals, teams you need to have access to in order to make it happen, and how to structure it in a way that is effective for the participants going through it, impactful for the people that contribute to it, and produces outcomes in a replicable way. So one of the most interesting things that we're seeing as more and more programs begin to talk to each other is clarity around what is working and what is not, and what that means for creating a firm arrangement of expectations around how these programs should work. Got it.
So, being that many of these accelerators are the forefront of tech, particularly in New York City, what excites you? If you're thinking about tech in New York City or the tech in ecosystem in general, what's exciting you right now?
Yeah. I think one of the most exciting things is this sort of emerging attitude. I think not just from the investment community, but coming out of a lot of becoming more present in a lot of accelerators and entrepreneurs themselves. Is a slowly diminishing importance of technical propriety and an increasing focus on go-to-market advantages. So what have you discovered about your customer, regardless of what your technology is, that enables you to say, we've got a moment here where we understand something unique about our market and we can grow it if we have the resources and the team to do it.
Yeah.
Right? And so getting to that point of discovery is something that I think more and more people are looking for in ways that isn't just about having a really cool IP attached to your startup, but actually really knowing your market, really knowing your customer, and having the team in place to take advantage of it at the right time.
Cool. And if you're to think about what's changing, right? So I think it's either investors or entrepreneurs need to adjust to certain changes occurring in the ecosystem. What are some of the things you're seeing there?
So the question is, what are we seeing change in the ecosystem itself?
Yeah.
I think the collective is a good example of it, right? So originally, just if you look back 5-7 years ago, the tech communities everywhere were pretty small. But then rapidly, there was a lot of investment coming in externally to support entrepreneurship, to support innovation programming. And it meant that a lot was getting experimented with and getting created, and there were many entry points and access points for all sorts of individuals and groups that wanted to get involved. But there wasn't a clear way for that to come together and be accessible in a way that anyone could find, this is the right program for me, or this is the right startup for me to be a part of, or this is the right certificate for me to pursue, or skill set to acquire. And I think now, right, with the collective being an example, we're getting to a point where we know the categories of activity, organizations, knowledge creation that are active and sort of evergreen in the community, and getting better at connecting them with an entry point that anybody can understand how they can take advantage of it through.
I think what's interesting also, on that point, which is the idea that there's a lot more knowledge sharing that's occurring, is from an investor standpoint, their expectations of startups changes with that, right? So you're a SaaS business, and many investors believe, given the tools and knowledge out there, you should be able to hit a $10 million ARR, your annual recurring revenue, right? But can you break through that, right? And even as an entrepreneur thinking about that, you should be able to go, can I break through it? Because I might be able to find massive success at this, from a exit standpoint or profitability standpoint at that smaller number. But if I'm going to try to go raise money from venture capitalists, they need to see a path for me to hit 25, 50, $100 million of ARR, on top of which is if I don't, but I take that money from them, I'm just probably cost myself all the value, the equity of my business I built.
Yeah.
Right, given preferential treatment, those things. E-commerce, right? Can you hit, beyond? Can you break through $25 million? So it's interesting that there's the benefits of that for entrepreneurs to find success, but also raises the question when you talk about path. What's the best accelerator? What's the best path in terms of capitalization, raising money, how you build the company? So I think there's these interesting changes occurring in the ecosystem.
It is, and I think the general public is becoming more articulate and more knowledgeable around what it takes to get a company together. It's no longer a black box process that only the very special Elon Musks and Bill Gates of the world can figure out. Everybody is getting more fluent on how to establish those core resources and build off of them. So as that fluency becomes stronger, it also means that the expectations for investors go up, and what you need to have done when you apply to an accelerator is way different, right, in terms of validation, team, product market fit than it was even 3 years ago. But that's great, right, because it shows that there's going to be more and more definition and more organization on how to systematically enable entrepreneurship, and that essentially is what excites me about accelerators, but also the community in general.
Yeah, which I think is a good lead off into, given that, what is expected, even an accelerator, you have to be further along than you used to be. You have to show more traction, beyond just here's an idea. You have to have, here's my product that's working, but I know I can do better, right? I think that's a good way to frame it. Now you're thinking, if you were to give maybe 2 or 3 pieces of advice to an entrepreneur, particularly as we're running out of time, this is probably our last thing we cover. What advice would you provide? What would you say? Here are the 2 or 3 things I think you should know. You should do well. You should be thoughtful about, and help you find success.
Yeah. I think whether it's getting into an accelerator or just wanting to be as good of an entrepreneur as possible, it's knowing how to ask for help. And that might sound trite, but I think it really is a skill. Giving people an understanding of the challenge you're facing, what a solution looks like, and how they can participate in that is as essential of a skill as pitching.
Yeah.
Right. Because even when you're doing an elevator pitch, you're developing a very off-the-cuff understanding for somebody to know what you're working on, but then also giving them an entry point. Hey, you could be an investor, or you could be an employee, or you could be a technology partner. Right. So I think asking for help is at the core of that, because it's also the way that you get buy-in. Right. Open sourcing your challenges is the best way to attract the mentors, the advisors, the employees that are going to make your company work. So even from the perspective of sleeping better at night, it's important, but I think it's also critical to building a great company fast.
Awesome. Well, John, if the audience wants to get in touch with you, how should they do that?
Yeah. So best email address is jfl@studioproject.co.
Awesome. And again, you can always reach me at j@nomadfinancial.com or hit up Nomad Financial. Reach us on the contact page if you have any questions related to anything finance and high growth companies. Thanks everybody again, and shout out to Nam, the man behind the camera. Nam, we almost got through an entire episode, almost getting it. We did not forget you. See everybody next week.